So hello and welcome to this video on samples from Soundforce. Let's check out what's to come before we get into it. Now right up front, I'd like to thank Soundforce for sponsoring this video. Samples is a collection of 6 one-shot sampled drum sounds from an 808 drum machine in 4HP. We simply have a trigger in and a sound output 6 times over for clavs, rimshot, maracas, hand clap, cowbell and closed hi-hat. But let's start with how each of these one-shot samples sounds. So familiar sounds, I'm sure. Let's get into some patches, putting these into beats, making drum drones with audio rate triggering, and trying to mangle and shape those sounds beyond what's actually just sampled in that raw triggered one-shot sound. So here's all 6 of these one-shot samples from Samples against a bass drum and a snare. Here's that kick and snare. And those are these 808 kick and snare DIY modules from Soundforce. So here I'm making use of a few of the sounds from Samples and trying to break them out of just their core sound. Of course, it's simple triggering one-shot sounds, but playing around with different patching, effects, processing, and trying to push this much further. So let's check out what's going on. Now everything is set against this 808 kick. And the second sound here is the cowbell out into a downsampler, then into a bit of delay. And then splitting the hand clap into both sides of the dual filter. One is being pinged. We can hear that it's not quite oscillating, but it's certainly been excited by that clap. And then the other side is the clap at the input, but a fast envelope from dual ADSR there, giving us a little kind of resonant blip. Now the hats are going into a reverb with the dry wet being modulated. And I'm audio rate triggering the rimshot from the DCO with an LFO raising and lowering the pitch of the oscillator, giving us this siren-like effect. This goes through some reverb for some smearing, and then into a VCA with a nice tight envelope to chop that up into little percussive pieces. Now here I'm triggering all 6 parts of Samples, mixing all of those together and using them to excite a vocoder with a filter bank. I'm vocoding an oscillator against these drum sounds. And you can see on this shot here, the different frequencies and bands are being excited by these different percussive hits. So here we're going to look at audio rate triggering to create these drum drones. Now audio rate triggering samples is a great technique to explore, and there's a lovely example by Heimbach I'll link in the description too. Now I'm simply taking the pulse out of my oscillator into the trigger in, and we're monitoring the sound directly out. We'll start at the bottom and work our way up so we can hear all the examples. Hi-hat. Cowbell. Hand clap. Maracas. Rimshot. And the claves. And adding a Volt-Per Octave signal to my oscillator, we're changing the rate of audio rate triggering, kind of forcing this like oddly synced pitch sequence over the audio rate drum drone. So here's an example of these drum drones. I'm audio rate triggering the rimshot and the hand clap from sub 1 and sub 2 on the DCO. Rimshot to the left hand side, hand clap to the right hand side of this dual filter. separate free-running LFOs to filter cutoffs, and then these go into 2 VCAs with more free-running looping envelopes fading the sounds in and out. And the colours of those sounds and samples are coming through, but we're getting this interesting drone. So here I'm taking all of the samples out into a mixer that's got some filtering and stereo imaging going on, and I'm affecting that with some audio rate AM and audio rate modulating the volume of the whole stereo mix of samples. Have a kick and snare in the background. That's the 808 kick and 808 snare DIY modules from Soundforce. We can hear a little bit of bleed from this high-pitched oscillator, but certainly when that cowbell hits, it's a nice crunchy, kind of down-sampled vibe to it. Kick and snare back in. So here's a patch making use of all of these outputs to flesh out this basic patch into a full kind of track. All these little accents and effects and extra bits of percussion really make this work well. So let me mute everything and go through what's going on. Clap output from samples going through some reverb, and the amount of reverb is modulated, as is some resonant filtering. Have the rim shot. Rim shot is just plain, pan slightly right. The hi-hat in a mixer. And then I have the maracas. This mixer's output, this little submix, is going into some sidechain compression. Have the DIY Soundforce snare. And all that again is being sidechained against this kick. A couple of other little interesting bits. I'm taking the clave output, the clavs, into some reverb, and then I'm chopping this up with this envelope in a VCA. So it's the clav sound exciting the reverb, but even if I go fully wet, I'm getting a different rhythm by modulating the reverb coming in and out. I then have the cowbell, which is going through some bit crushing and some delay. That's been panned around. So simply muting these on and off. I've also then got a bass sound. It's the DCO through the dual filter. And it's a big patch. I'll put a picture up of the patch, but it's really fleshing this out into what's sounding like a finished track. Multi-tracking all this out, you've quite a nice little production, and I might just do that. So thanks for checking out samples from Soundforce. Do check out video demos for the DCO, the dual filter and the dual ADSR, linked in the description below. Head to patreon.com/divkid to support the work that I do. Hit like, subscribe, leave any questions in the comments, and cheers for watching. I'll see you next time.